Later today, the FOMC will announce exactly what the rate hike is going to be. Now, why does this matter? Well, that discussion gives the market a lot of insights into what the U.S. Federal Reserve is seeing in the economy, as well as what steps they are going to do that can actually hurt the economy in their efforts to bring down inflation numbers. Today, we're going to look at the U.S. dollar, as that has huge impacts on money that will be flowing into crypto or not flowing into crypto, because that money probably won't flow in until the DXY, or the dollar index, breaks much lower. So let's take a look and see where that is at. Let's also check out Bitcoin and ETH and their charts, as well as some viewer suggestions for the altcoins that the viewers picked for us to review today. Welcome to the Crypto Rain channel. I'm your host, Jay Rain. If you like money in crypto and you're looking for a seasoned investor's take on the crypto market, join the Rainmaker family. Do note I'm not a financial advisor. I'm a crypto investor myself. We do want to thank our Patreon members. We do have a private Discord there our Patreon members get access to. Now make it rain on that like button. Strap in for the show, and let's welcome Paul from Definity.
Another week's gone by. It's always so quick.
Yes.
Yeah. Great to be here.
Yeah, it's so good to have you.
Thank you.
The audience absolutely loves your insights into, especially the macro side. Some of my viewers said the first 30 minutes are actually their favorite, because being in the crypto space, we often don't get to see what others see outside of the crypto space that impacts the crypto space. So your insights on what's going on in the US dollar and other environments is really helpful.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, there's a lot to talk about. As you mentioned at the top of the show, there's the FOMC meeting. Now, the markets are expecting a 75 basis point rate hike, which means that if they do that, the markets will see that as favorable, because there's no new information. The market only moves on things that it's not expecting, things that have come out of the ordinary. So if they do 50 basis points or 100 basis points, then there'll be a market move. But even if they do something that's more hawkish, and hawkish means higher rates, dovish means lower rates. So if they do something more hawkish, the market can actually respond positively, because they'll feel like you want to get interest rates up, you're doing it quickly, get it out of the way. Let's just, clear out everything and move on. Mm-hmm. And the quicker you sort of get rid of the uncertainty as to where the stabilization point is going to be, because we know there's going to be a stabilization point, partly because there's so much government debt out there that if they keep raising interest rates, it's going to cost them a lot of money. So they're going to do this little dance where they'll raise interest rates to a whatever normal is supposed to be. The 2% inflation target, which used to be a target, is now an average. So that average over what period? I mean, if you average it over 50 years, or if you average it over 3 months, who knows? I mean, that means that there isn't an inflation target. So it's giving us a bit of a clue that inflation might be running hot for the next few years anyway. So that is good news for crypto. That really is good news. That means the solid coins and the risk-on situation is getting ever closer. Now, we'll have a look at the dollar in a moment, but the situation with the interest rates futures, there's the interest rate yields are slightly coming off. The equity markets have already responded very positively. They were like they were ahead of the curve, because they were looking at the CPI numbers. So the inflation numbers, which everyone's talking about, so I'm sure they are on the high street where you are in the US, where we are in the UK. It's all about inflation and how much more expensive everything is. But if you look behind the scenes, things have actually eased off quite a lot. And those inflation numbers are going to start to sort of cross over with the Fed raising interest rates as inflation numbers are going back down. So if you look further out, about a year out, possibly 4.5%, maybe 5%, but nothing crazy above that. So the market can live with that. And if inflation is really running at 10%, they're going to make this calculation that you may as well be investing your money and borrowing still, and looking at the housing market potentially, or risk on trades, rather than letting it sit in a bank account where you may get 2%. I don't know what you get on your savings at the moment in a bank account in America, but it's not going to be much more than 1.5 or 2% in the UK, I can tell you. So if you think inflation is at least 5 or 6%, you're just losing money every year. So the problem is the market is actually not so focused on what interest rates are going to be. It's more what's inflation going to be and how hot is it going to run. So what do we do with our money? So the market's very logical. If they're going to be losing money every year due to inflation, they may as well invest it. Now, high inflation is good for equities because it means that companies can raise their prices, and that's where you would hedge against it. You'd also hedge against it, people say, against base metals and precious metals for obvious reasons, because the prices of those will go up. Now, interestingly, we're seeing a bit of a correction unusually in tech stocks. So tech stocks are going down and they're not leading this particular rally. So we've got the S&P. This is a chart of the S&P. It's broken out of this downward trend channel. And so that's a pretty decent move up. So it's going to consolidate today because people are a bit worried about what the Fed are going to do, obviously. And then we'll see where it wants to go next. Now, this 37.62 level for me is very important, because if this is the first upward phase, I don't want to see it break much below 37.62. Otherwise, we could be looking at a much bigger correction. But let's compare that to the Dow. You see, the Dow has actually moved up very aggressively, had a very smooth double bottom pattern, which we looked at on the show around here. And so it's completed that, but the size of the pattern indicates how far the market's going to move. So the market's moved about as far as it's done on previous rallies. And as you see, the last time that happened, it collapsed. So we're not out of the woods. We're in a decent rally, but I've been looking behind the market to see what the positions are. And it seems like people are shorting it here. In other words, expecting it to fall, and they're shorting it pretty heavily. So either they're really smart and they've got it right, or they're going to be forced to cover this week, and this is just going to keep squeezing up. So we'll get that answered pretty soon. Possibly, well, actually, by the time you see this, definitely, because the announcement will be within a few hours anyway. And you've got to discount a bit of volatility as soon as the number comes out, because that's how the markets are. But the NASDAQ is very much more compressed. This is not being driven by tech stocks, which is interesting in itself. So some of the tech stocks that I pointed out last week that I thought were holding in quite well actually just went down really aggressively. So I think I pointed out the stocks of, where are they now? Where are the proper stocks? I'll just get them for you. They are, my order seems to have changed on this. So yeah, so the equities of, so Netflix is different. That's recovered from a low and that's trending up. So we had Microsoft is still going sideways. I thought this is a consolidation. It's heading to the lower end of that, which is not great. It better pull up soon, otherwise there's going to be a problem. Tesla we can discount. Apple's always slightly more positive than everything else. I think that's actually eventually going to break up. That seems to be doing very well on a long-term basis. But it's Meta that's actually a bit of a worry, because it was consolidating here last week and it's just lurched to the downside. So the market is really not happy with that. So I think it will turn around. I think there'll be a recovery, but that's, for the moment, isn't very good. I prefer looking at the charts of the chip makers. Nvidia, that seems to be doing much better. That's starting to turn around. So I think that's really good. Amazon, not great. That's broken a low there. So that's going for another low. So it looks like this new rally phase is going to be driven by a different sort of market. In other words, it's not necessarily going to be all about tech, but it's definitely going to be all about printing more money for the government, which I think is very good, as I say, for the future of the crypto space.
Yeah, the tech stocks, most of them seem to continue to get crushed lately. Would you mind if we took a look at the US dollar and where that's sitting?
Absolutely, yeah. Sorry, I didn't want to just sort of keep talking constantly without letting you jump in, and I know I can do that if you want me to, but I thought I'd just stop and let you tell me what you'd like to look at. So so what we've got here is the US dollar is consolidating. So it's come off very nicely, and I'm quite pleased with the way it's come off, because obviously you know that we're looking for a change in trend here. And there was this double top and this area around 110. Now, the little fly in the ointment that I think we mentioned last week was it still hasn't broken this upward trend line, this main upward trend line. In fact, there's two. There's one that actually goes all the way back to the beginning of the trend, which is really what we need to break to confirm a major reversal. But that comes all the way down here. So it's going to take a long time to break that. But this accelerated trend line is what has been developing as more and more people have been piling into the US dollar. So it's this line that we really need to break to confirm a top. So I'm quite happy for it to go sideways, for it to consolidate, and eventually it will either hit this line, use it as support, or break it and go back lower. But I can't really get my teeth into a bear trend until this breaks. So I can, I can say the probabilities are that it's turning, but I can't be absolutely sure, or increase my probability is probably a better way of putting it, until this trend line actually breaks. But the dollar's well behaved. It's rallied a little bit because, of course, they think rates are going to go up. Now, if it does by 75 basis points, that's already known. So I think if you're going long on that basis, I don't think that's a very good reason to be buying dollars. Now, if they start talking more hawkish, that might force it up a bit. Maybe it will have an attempt at this high. That's possible. I'd say I can't rule it out. That's all I can say. I'd rather be able to rule it out by it being trending to the downside. But there are quite a few currencies that are showing strength against the US dollar. So I don't think we're far away from it. And if I could just quickly jump in a chart of the yield. So we've got US two, sorry.
I wanted to see, for those viewers that haven't caught our prior discussions about the dollar index and why it's relevant to both the stock and crypto markets. Why is the dollar getting stronger and going higher? Why is that inversely correlated? Or as those go up, usually the other markets go down or stay down? What causes that? Would you explain that to those that haven't followed and seen our discussion on that before?
Well, as the US raises interest rates, people who borrow in the world reserve currency, which is the US dollar, have to pay higher rates as the US is ahead of the curve in raising interest rates compared to everyone else. So in other words, the cost of borrowing in US dollars has been going up. If the dollar's weakening, that means if I've borrowed dollars, then I can borrow more dollars, and what I have to pay back gets less. So that means I have more money if I borrow in dollars. So just think about that for a minute. A weakening, if the currency I've borrowed in is weakening, it's a bit like inflation being in the system. My borrowing is decreased, and therefore I feel more wealthy, as it were. I can invest in more speculative things. So that's part of it, but it's also linked to the profile of interest rates. So interest rates are a competitor to other risk assets. So if you can imagine for a moment that if you could get, say, 10% on your savings, if you just left it in the bank, you think twice about where you might put your money. Now, I'm exaggerating to make a point. If somebody offered you sort of potential of 5 or 6%, but you might not get all your money back, you'd say, it's not really worth it. I can put it in the bank. So interest rates going up and the fact that the US was leading the way meant that people became more risk off in their outlook. Investors decided to take less risk and just park it where they get a higher rate in US Treasury bonds, where the yields have been going up. So it's a competitor to other risk on type markets. So this is what's been linked to as the Fed raise interest rates, that draws more money into the US dollar. So that's where the correlation comes in. Now, at some point, and we're seeing those points now, a lot of the other reserve, not Federal Reserve, but like the Bank of England, the central banks, have been catching up with this inflation story. And we've had a weaker currency as well that's made the situation worse. So they're starting to raise interest rates or talk about how inflation is being a bit of a problem. So that what that's doing is it's putting a brake on our weakening currency, and it will improve our inflation situation, which in turn means interest rates won't have to go up as much, which in turn means that there's more money to put into other riskier things. So in terms of the dollar, it's just a question of the dollar will go up because the Fed have been ahead of the curve raising interest rates. And as soon as they ease off on that or show signs that they're easing off, They might even say that they're not, just to try and keep the market from too much speculation, because they see it as their job to do that. But but ultimately, they are not going to want to upset what the banks want, and the banks tend to want lower interest rates and growth, and the government wants growth. So you could say they should be politically disconnected from the government, but I think in reality they're not. So they're probably going to do what's best for the economy. And if things start to turn down too fast, they'll have to ease off on those interest rate rises. So if you think about, they're ahead of the curve in raising rates. They did it first, and so all the money sort of surged into the dollar. That's why it looks like dollar strength is affecting everything else in terms of the crypto space. And it's not really a one-to-one correlation. As you can see, the dollar's weakened a bit. To be fair, cryptos, the main ones, have moved up a little bit as well. They've stopped falling, that's for sure. So that's a good sign. But it's really linked to the interest rate profile more than the strength in the dollar. It's one of the markers that shows us what the market expectation is for interest rates going forward.
Great. Yeah, let's take a look at Bitcoin and ETH. So in other words, the dollar might be near the end of its run. As it starts coming down, a lot of that big money that's been parked in just dollar denominated yields might start moving into what people call risk on assets, which are equities or crypto. And so a lot of big money has been sitting on the sidelines, just earning interest in the US dollar, might then start to move into other places. We're hoping one of those places, and we suspect one of those places, is crypto. So let's take a look at the major, starting with Bitcoin.
Yeah, I think broadly speaking, if we talk about the long-term macro, I think inflation is going to run hot for the next few years. And when we're in that like sweet spot of the Fed holding interest rates relatively where they are and sort of pretending that inflation isn't a problem, yet the markets will be telling us that it is a problem, that's when crypto will start to motor. The big question about how we end this year and what's going on here is whether it's already started now, or whether there's just one more downward phase to go. And this is the question I'm constantly asking myself with the charts at the moment. We got for those of you that may be new to the channel and just watching, we were watching the collapse. Then we saw a spike low that gave us a rally. That wasn't enough to change the big trend, but it was a fairly decent rally, and we caught it through the ETH market, which I'll show you in a moment. There was a good technical pattern. Then that all reversed again. Now, normally when something reverses like that, it will just take the low out and we'll print a new low and it'll be a new phase, but that hasn't happened either. And so the market's been sort of bubbling along on this low, threatening to take the all-time lows out, or not the all-time, but the 2022 lows out, but it hasn't done that. Now, some of the altcoins that we're going to look at have made a similar pattern and then suddenly rallied very aggressively. So a couple of weeks ago, we considered that this might actually have an attempt at the upside, only for the reason that it had failed to go down. So if it wanted to go down, why hadn't it gone down? It's had every opportunity in the world to go down. Interest rates have been going up, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and they're still going up, but it failed to push lower. And so that gave a clue that it might go into a rally, which it has done. But as you can see, if we take a step back on this chart, has it made a massive impact on it, or is it just part of the overall move that we've been seeing pretty much since June? And I think the answer is it's still well within this range. Now, this could be forming what we call a massive double bottom, or this could be a huge accumulation phase that could then, once it's completed, start a huge rally. So we'll be talking about a number of years rather than weeks. So normally that would happen when the market goes sideways for a long time. But we need to see it higher to confirm that. And it's okay if it goes sideways. That's okay. Consolidation is good. It just mustn't go lower. And we can't rule that out yet, because if we look at this high and then this high and say this is another high, they're still declining. We need to break that pattern of declines and trade more to the peak, the most recent peak, important peak, which would be this August high. So if we cross through that, now you might say, well, why would you buy it here if you can, why would you buy it at 25,000 if you can buy it at 20,000 and just sit on it. Well, the answer is, well, you can buy it here. You can do anything you want. That's the thing about the markets. But we're still not out of the woods from this trading pattern yet. So we need confirmation. There could still be one more downside, and in which case we'd have to bail out. But there's a few things that I'm encouraged by. And one of them is this is quite a nice little what we call pennant formation, which means that it should actually move today or tomorrow to the upside, because this little prior trend was up. So this should move up. Now, it doesn't guarantee it. It's not saying this is definitely going to happen. It's like a higher probability than a lower probability, 60-40, I would say, maybe even 70-30, but still a 30% chance it won't happen. It could go down, but this is quite a nice little pattern. So from a very short-term perspective, I'm thinking we could get to this 21,868 resistance, and we're looking at all the resistance points, just where the market stopped, to see, where short-term profits might be taken. So if we bought it today, traders you get out a few days later, where they might decide to put their sell orders. So that's quite a nice little pattern there. I quite like it. I like the fact that it's now above for a change and holding over the 60-day moving average. This is the medium-term moving average. The longer term, the 200-day moving average is this one, which is one that most people look at. So it's why I have it on here. But as you can see, that's still going down. And if we take the big picture chart and just zoom out a little bit more, you can see that this is still a downward trend line. And until this line here breaks, we still have to be a bit more cautious. But there's a reason for that. The longer we spend in this space, potentially the bigger the upside move when it comes. Now, just to say once again that is all negated if it takes this low out. Every low print in technicals, you have to respect. I don't tell the market what to do. I have to follow what the market does. And it is a bit of a tricky period for now. And I can understand why there's, less interest in the market, because it's not trending. And this sort of short-term price action can be quite difficult to watch. But as we've seen with some of the picks that Crypto Rain's made, that happens. And then they can really break out aggressively to the upside. Yes, there's some that also break to the downside too. But when you're in the altcoin space, it's far more volatile. And just very quickly onto the chart of ETH.
Yep.
What you might see here immediately is that this looks far more bullish. If you flick backwards and from one to the other, you can see that ETH is far further along in the upward trend. It's far further away from its 2022 low, which is interesting. Now, you guys out there will tell me whether you think ETH is a better technology or not. The market seems to be saying that it is, certainly at the moment. I know Bitcoin has its place and ETH has its place, and people see different things in both of them. Maximalists of Bitcoin say that it's really the only true decentralized exchange, cryptocurrency, because of the cost of creating a node with Bitcoin is much less than ETH. I'd be asking someone like Crypto Rain questions like that and to see what you say. For me, a chart is a chart is a chart. The chart is just telling me that people who know what they're doing seem to favor ETH at the moment, and I'm going to go with that. So 1720 here is the resistance point. This is the triangular constriction that is very similar to the one that's going on in Bitcoin, which is usually completed by quite a nice little move to the upside. So I'm willing to stay bullish. I want to stay bullish. I'm looking not just because I want to be that. I don't want to be biased in any way, but I think there are signals that are saying we're getting near the end of this Fed move. Risk on is looking pretty good. The equity markets have definitely moved aggressively. The party may be joined by other risk on assets, and this is doing okay. So out of the two, ETH is still favored because it's performing better. 1720 is massive resistance. It's played around there before, so it's pretty close, as is the 200-day moving average. So we've got to tread carefully on those barriers ahead. But if we can get through those, we'll be talking about quite an interesting end to the year, potentially from a big picture point of view. So it's amazing how these things can sneak up quite slowly, where you think nothing's going on, but actually this chart is looking pretty good.
Yeah. Well, they call it crypto winter for a reason. It gets like cold and like a barren wasteland. And a lot of people leave in, even though it's the best time to be around and buying, in my opinion. I mean, that's how I made my fortune was last crypto winter. I was stocking up like crazy because I came midway through the last bull run of 2017. And yeah, I made some money and watched it all evaporate as it fell below where I had bought at. Yeah, but then I knew, okay, well, what do you do when you're at the bottom? Well, you just buy more. And that's what I did. And then surprisingly, that leads to massive fortunes when you're investing in a technology that's increasing, that's expanding, and will revolutionize what the internet can do. And so, like, yeah, so now we're in another one of those bear markets, or as we call it in the crypto space, crypto winter. And so it's, in my opinion, a great time to be stocking up and buying like crazy, and then take the write up when it comes. I don't like trading on leverage because it forces you into a position that you can't be patient. And part of what I do, the important thing is being patient. So you can just wait out when it does come, though there's a lot of signs that are looking bullish that it could come sooner rather than later. There are so many factors now that determine that for me, I just stock up while it's low and then I sell when it's high. It's as simple as that. Let's take a look at, well, do you mind if we look at, I know it's not on schedule, but let's look at Dogecoin. Now, I don't trade Doge myself. There's a lot of reasons behind it. I don't trade meme coins because meme coins are mostly, there are some factors that you can use to kind of follow what's going to happen with the meme coins. I tend to like companies and projects where I can look for good leadership. I can look for a company narrative that makes sense. What's interesting about Dogecoin is Dogecoin brings a lot of new people into this space. When people like that don't know anything about crypto, sometimes Doge is kind of like the gateway to people for crypto. And so it recently had this big run, and I think that's relevant.
Yeah. So if it's a measure of risk appetite, we know obviously it's the Elon Musk situation that's pushed it up, but
Yeah.
if it's a measure of the market's desire to take risk, then we could say broadly that it's a good sign that things like this are spiking up. Now, would one invest in it? Well, I have to, because technicals is
What you do.
we know, yeah, because if the market, I'm not saying I've physically bought some, but all I'm saying is that a signal is the signal you have to take, because when you're trading on price, that's the whole point of technical analysis. You're not supposed to say, well, hang on, there's nothing there, even if there isn't. Now, of course, you can rationally decide that you don't want to, you want to trade something better, but the point I'm making here is that you can ride something up that's worthless as long as you
Yep.
get out and you know what you're doing. Is if that's your thing, then you have to know where to get out.
Well, and what are you seeing in this? Because your price
Yeah.
analysis tells us, like, it gives us the odds that I'm curious to see what you think will happen with Doge, because if Doge does take a bigger run, that will get more eyes on crypto and more money coming into crypto.
Well, the actual setup is cleaner than some of the others, which is, I can't explain that as to why. And thankfully, using technicals, I don't have to. But we've got a really strong upward trend here, and then this obviously is the corrective phase that stopped around the period of this triangular constriction, which happens quite a lot when the market retraces like that. It uses these triangles, or sort of 3/4 of the way up in the trend as support. And so that's what we found there. Now, the clues that something would happen would be, remember, there's been a few altcoins where the market has just gone up on strong volume, like opens at the low, closes at the high. Let me just zoom in and show you what I mean. It's where the pattern of normal behavior suddenly changes. So this was the trigger that something was going on, these really sharp moves. If we take the actual move out like that, and you can see that there's something weird going on because volume is going up and it's broken this trend line. So the market actually respects technicals really well. So the question is, I use a kind of hybrid sometimes of normal just price analysis and some very simple what we call Elliott wave theory. And Elliott waves are looking for impulsive waves, which is sharp moves in the direction of the major trend, and then corrective waves. So this looks very much like it's starting what would be a new bullish phase. So this would be a wave one. We'd need to see a wave two correction, and then the next move up would be a wave three move. And that would tell us that this is completing something much bigger. But for the moment, you'd have to go with this trend. Like in simple price analysis, it would have to be a buy as long as it stays over 10 cents. I'd say maybe if I use the breakout point here of just over 9, so give a bit of room, it shouldn't get back below this point here, which is absolutely fantastic resistance. So if it does come back, that's like a barrier of support where it shouldn't get back below.
Mhm.
Now, again, I'm not saying anything about it in terms of its actual value, other than there seems to be this risk on appetite, whatever it's driven by. I think if people are going to buy this that has got nothing behind it, they should be interested in ones that have got good technology behind it and a good market use case.
Yeah, it's been fun to watch this go. And what's interesting is in the Twitter buyout by Elon Musk, did you notice Binance was one of the funders helping fund it? Which I found very curious. Binance, I love CZ and what he continues to do for the crypto space. And that has my mind spinning on, well, so can we all agree Elon Musk is like genius level? Let's talk about all the different things that he's revolutionized. So they have the boring company that essentially bores holes for like subway systems and other things and utilities and all kinds of stuff. They have SpaceX where they launch rockets into space. They have a new satellite system that gives the fastest internet if you have access to it. And I know somebody that has it. So they pay like a reasonable amount of money per month, and they have blazing internet speeds and really good uptime. As well as they've been able to move those satellites over Ukraine when Russia tried to turn off their internet and stuff. So like amazing things. So not only do they have the rockets to be able to put their own satellites in space, they have so many amazing things coming on. They have Tesla. So if you think about building a new car company and making it relevant, how many companies have done that in the last 50 years? I can't think of one other than Tesla, right? So even a lot of the companies out there like Kia made a big move into the US, but they were an existing company that had been around for forever. And they just hadn't been in the US market. And so like building a new company, he did buy into Tesla. Tesla was already running, but he took control of that and he built it into something big, taking a new company into the heights that he has done. It's incredible. And so buying out Twitter, I think he's got bigger plans probably with the crypto space too. And that's probably why Binance is a partner with him on that.
Yeah. The whole sort of Web 2.0 is something that I think the major sort of technology companies have got to be really thinking about, because decentralizing is going to eat into their business. Maybe this is why we're seeing their underperformance right now. And he's obviously a maverick. He's obviously someone who seems to want free speech. And if he's an advocate of a cryptocurrency, I mean, seems a bit of a strange one, but okay. I mean, he was into Bitcoin before. I think it's positive for the space generally, even if I'm sort of scratching my head as to what his plans might be.
Right.
I think in the end, the wider community, like the sort of people who are watching this show, I think they're going to sort it out. They're going to sort of vote with their feet as to what they think is the best technology, and that will emerge. So unless he's going to issue his own coin, which I think would be a smarter move than actually, being positive on Dogecoin. I think people would much rather buy a coin that was issued by him. So I don't know. We shall see. But I don't think it. I ask myself, is this a negative or is it a positive? I think it's a positive, and I can't see it how it might be a negative. Maybe it is. Perhaps someone could tell me. I'd probably ask Manu Chowdhury from Definity. I'd ask him, and I'd probably ask you the same question.
Interesting to see what Manu has to say about that.
Yeah.
I'm really excited where this is going. I think the technicals have been setting up for a solid run sometime in the coming months. We'll see if it plays out like that. But if it does, I think Elon Musk, he's been very interested in crypto for about 2 years now. Bitcoin and then Doge, even though I'm not a fan of meme coins, I don't invest in meme coins. And even with these technicals, I don't know that I would even buy if the pullback bounced off that good support number. Maybe I would take a short-term trade on the run, but I tend to hold projects that I think will do something revolutionary in the coming years. Dogecoin is probably not that project unless Elon Musk takes full control of it and does something nice with it. The advantage to him running Dogecoin would be that it's already been out there for so long, there'd be less trouble with the SEC deeming it a security. One of my big beefs with Dogecoin is that it has an ever increasing supply. Yeah. So I think about supply and demand, just my past 25 years experience investing, increasing supplies in cryptocurrency, I don't tend to love, and it prints off new Dogecoin every 10 minutes. And the rate of that printing never decreases, unlike Bitcoin. So that's one of the things I don't love about Dogecoin is every 10 minutes, a whole bunch more are minted, and that will continue on to infinity. Let's take a look at another one that had a breakout this week, and that is the OMI token.
Yeah, so OMI, here we go. So again, there wasn't much warning, and do we know fundamentally why?
Yeah.
You do? Okay, great.
They announced they had a monthly update with the founders of that run VV, and they briefly talked about OMI. They have someone else that runs the Akomi side of the project, but essentially the two founders of the whole project, they run the VV side, which is the collectible side. But they said that they would be releasing the OMI utility program soon. And so when they said that, that's what caused this to pump, because this is the one that they haven't really had a use case for the token that's been well defined yet. But they will have some incentives in their OMI utility program for those collectors who hold the token OMI. Will have some incentives towards some special things that they get access to if they're holding a certain amount of the OMI token. So that will then drive possibly the hundreds of thousands, maybe even million collectors to start buying and holding the OMI token, or increase the amounts of the OMI token that they're holding. So that might be coming in the coming weeks. And so that's what kicked off this move.
Interesting. So where it stopped is at the 200-day moving average, which is an interesting point for it to decide to completely stop. So it's just bang on, which you see why technical analysts put these levels there, because when they work kind of bang on. I know they don't always work because nothing can, but it's just there as a potential. So what's interesting about this is that it's back to this is all forming part of a much longer term base. It's a really great rally. It's still below where it was in July. And if it can just go a bit further and take that out, this would be seen as a massive double bottom formation, which would be great for the long-term prospects. So that's why I flicked it over to a weekly chart, which kind of highlights what we're trying to reverse. We're trying to reverse this downward trend. Now, at the moment, it's made a strategic low, a strategic high. We can see those really important low and high points that have marked the range. And we're in the middle of that, which is great that it's had this rally, but we're still in the middle of that range. So we're not going to be able to say anything from a much longer term perspective until it can get through this resistance. But if we go back to the daily chart, that doesn't mean there's no information there at all. There's this little triangular constriction or pennant, as it's known. A pennant is a short-term pausing pattern before the market then continues. And in the textbook, it shows as a sharp upward move, then followed by another sharp upward move. Again, it's not guaranteed that it will do that. And when you're looking at altcoins, which is obviously always the second part of the show, you've got to be much more careful than anything else that you're looking at, because of course they're not mature markets and they can be pushed around by smaller players. The thing about the bigger markets is it's much harder to influence them. So that's why reading the technicals is a bit harder with some of these coins, because the whole idea about technicals is it's an average of opinion of the whole market, and it's not influenced by one individual or a small group of individuals. The smaller the market, the more likely it can be influenced by just a small group of individuals. And then it becomes less like market theory and less predictable. So, but that doesn't mean it's not predictable at all. It's just that you have to just add that to the risk element of these smaller markets. They can be blown around by very small positions. So, but this is nice. This is a nice little triangular constriction, as I say, a pennant. It should break out to the upside. The thing about this pattern is it should move within a couple of days. Yes, it may come back down, of course, and negate this pattern. But even if it does that, what we can see here is there's good support in the moving average, which is very close to this prior support. So if it comes back to here, I think there'll be some potential buys. And we're moving off this low now. So although it's a very gradual upward trend line, we can actually draw one, whereas we couldn't at any stage along here before because the market was just falling. So it's printed a low that we can use as strategic support, even if that trend line isn't particularly aggressive. Now, of course, if it breaks it, we'd have to change our view and come out of it, because that's the way technicals works. You parachute out when it breaks a level that indicates that the dynamics have changed. But for the moment, it's looking really good. And I like the fact that it's broken out aggressively, because usually moves like that are the beginning of something, and it's got something to build on.
Yeah, it looks like a nice constriction there that chances are it breaks again to the upside. What, 60-40 chance maybe?
Yeah, and actually I was just thinking back to a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago. I think in this area here, and we were looking on the other chart, and remember volume had gone up and we weren't sure why, and I think you bought some more. So you bought some more of this actually on the show, and you said, yeah, I'm going to buy some more. And actually nothing really happened. It just sort of drifted down. Maybe this is, now we're finding out why. Maybe that other volume was like somebody getting wind of potentially this announcement that you've just made, because it would normally take a month or so, perhaps, or a few weeks before it actually becomes public knowledge from when it's originally kind of conceived. Now, I'm not saying anyone's done anything wrong. I'm just saying that people who follow it very closely will be party to more information. When there's so many coins, it's very difficult to look out for every single morsel of information. But there was definitely that volume move that we saw, and perhaps that kind of fits in with what's just happened now.
Yeah, there's some speculation on my part as to how strong the use case for this token will be. And the stronger that use case is, or like if they give us a solid reason for holding the OMI token in order to increase what you can get as a collector. Say, for example, if you have really high levels of holding the OMI token, you get to be able to buy a certain rare collectible that there's not very many of before everyone else. That would give a really, really strong use case, and I think the token would do amazing. We don't know how strong the use case is going to be for it. We do know that they're going to roll out the OMI utility program, or they've announced that they're going to roll it out pretty shortly. How strong it is, I don't know, but the stronger it is, that will finally give people who collect the NFTs or collectibles on the application a strong reason to start holding the OMI token. And it will have what it's never really had in its history, which is a utility behind it, or a reason to hold it other than you just hope it goes up. And so I'm looking forward to that being announced. I hope it's a strong use case. Obviously, I hold a ton of this token, a ton. And I did recently buy some more on the pullback after it broke up. It came really down to, I think, 0.00142. I was able to buy some more. So on the chance that it breaks up again from here, which it might, and it may break back down. But pretty soon that utility program will be rolled out. And if it's strong, my guess is then the OMI token will run up from here. And it's been forming this really nice base. One of the hard things about buying near the bottom is you're never quite at the bottom, and you might not buy the exact bottom. And I'm okay with that. In the short term, if it goes down more, oh well, even though I just bought a bunch more, I just kind of wait it out and wait, because I think in the future, when money comes into the general market, this and many other tokens are going to be much, much, much higher. And that's the long-term vision that I buy with, that I just have that patience to let that play out. And that's worked extremely well for me, not only in crypto, but in the real estate and other investments I did prior to crypto. Let's take a look over at Solend. We haven't looked at this in a little bit. Some money's coming back into Solana, so it's interesting to see what's happening with Solend.
Yeah, so this is again one of the markets that seems like the amount of trading, when you look at the charts, you can tell whether it's a liquid market, and I'm sure it's liquid enough, but the way it moves is very, very smooth. Apart from around here, which there's some strange price action. So either that's a data thing, or there's just some really unusual moves where it's just sort of up, down, up, down, up, down. You don't get to see that very often. So that sticks out as to being a bit strange, either in data or actual, what was going on in terms of trading. But the headline here is that this looks like it's making a base. So we've got 1, 2 as a double bottom. We got the breakout point, which is where it is now. And it's been going sideways for some time. The trend looks like it's over. This downward trend line looks like it's over. The only thing that's slightly disappointing about it is that the way it's breaking this resistance point is very muted. It's a very lethargic break of resistance. What I like to see is a very sharp move through these resistance points to confirm. It's almost like a down breaking, and the market moves a bit like just the way you've seen Dogecoin. It just hits the level and goes boom. I'd like to see that happen, and it's not really done that. It's just sort of leisurely broken it and then come back down again, which is a bit of a disappointment if it's going to be kicking off a major move. But at least it's up here. So overall, this is still in the buy camp, because this looks like a major double bottom, and that is, I can't ask any more of it other than complete a base. And you've heard me talking about how long it takes to complete bases before. So the way the discipline works is it's got to really stay over the baseline trigger, and it's sort of broken and then come back again. So you're in this situation where what does one do? Do you exit the position and then keep rebuying it every time it goes over it? And it could chew this line for a bit, so you end up buying it and selling it and buying it and selling it. I think a more sensible situation would be to buy it and then put a stop loss. For me, I would just say, look, I'm not going to do that, but if I think it's going to go up, I'll give it a little bit of room. And 74 cents, fair enough place. Now, sometimes you get a symmetry between the bases. So if we take this as the central point, then this is base 1 and this is base 2. And on the way up, you had this little, on the way down, sorry, you had this reaction here. So we might see a reaction and then another move up, which means that it would come into here as support, possibly take my stop out. If I bought it, it would hit my stop and then I'd have to rebuy it. So it's like one of those things, you pay your money, you take your choice as to how you trade it. If we don't buy it here and it goes straight up, we'll say we should have bought it. And that's the thing. You're dealing with risk, and everything's a risk. Is a risk if you don't buy it and it goes up. So I would say from this point, overall, technically, the trend, the downward trend seems to be over. This is a decent base. And I would call in good resistance or support, I should say, which was prior resistance here to hold a position until it breaks that. And then we'll reconsider the technicals nearer the time if that does happen. From a longer term perspective, this is the developing trend line. So if you really wanted to park it in the bottom drawer and forget about it for a long time, then I would put a sort of a note out to say, well, if it breaks back below this level, you get an email or a ping on your charting system or something like that, tell you to have a look at it. Okay, that's a big retracement, but that's if you don't want to look at it. That's if you're just leaving it yeah, as I say, putting it in the bottom drawer and forgetting about it for 6 months, and just want to know whether you should get out of it. So yeah, this is interesting. This is looking good, much better than it has done in a long time.
Yeah, the Solana ecosystem's been being crushed for a solid year now, but they are leading into the Solana conference. Sometimes things pump going into that and then they dump after.
Right.
This is one that's interesting. One of the reasons I like this one is it's one of the premier DeFi applications on the Solana ecosystem, and it's backed by a lot of big backers. And so, I've been following this one. I own a bunch of this myself.
Yeah.
Surprised at how much it's dumped. I got crushed on my positions on this because one of the things I liked about it is they had long lockups on their pre-sale investors. So I'm not sure if it's ecosystem tokens or what in their tokenomics where so many of their tokens got dumping the price this low. And I'm not opposed to prices dumping really low, but usually I see that coming more than I did on this one, and I wait and buy near those lows. This one, my dollar cost average on is quite a bit higher where the prices are at. In those cases, I just wait. This happens a lot in the long run. I still usually do extremely well, but in the short term, sometimes you're like, dang it, I could have got so much more for what I put in. Just part of being an investor. People think if you're a millionaire from crypto, you have a perfect magic ball and you can see the future. And that's not how it works. What it does is what you do is invest in good projects when you feel like the prices are low. And sometimes they then go lower, which sucks in the short term, but then they go higher. And then everyone sees that and thinks that you're a genius. Well, what it is you're patient, and patience plays out well, especially with projects that have a solid future. And sometimes we're making guesses on that. But if you're a pretty good guesser on analyzing the teams behind it, who are the other backers, what are the fundamentals behind it, yeah, it tends to work out pretty well in this growing space. Let's take a look over at an interesting one. This is a viewer suggestion, GLDN.
Yeah, I had a quick look at that just before, and I have a feeling that we've talked about it, and there wasn't anything that I could find unless it's on
GLDN.
Yeah, GLDN. There's nothing coming up. Oh well, Golden Swap, but there was nothing under it when I looked at Golden Swap.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. I found it on CoinMarketCap. It's a relatively new one. And I'm going to read out the comment on this. So Freedom Cat asked us to look at this. He said, can you look into GLDN? It's something the token metrics team is talking about. When you hold the GLDN, you get PAX G as rewards. They aim to be a commodity exchange. What do you think? It's interesting that it just launched and the price has done that. Sometimes when projects just launch, their market cap's already at 42 million. The max supply, let's see, what is there? It looks like all the tokens might be in circulation. I'm looking at CoinMarketCap, and I'm going to share my screen.
Yeah, if you could, that'd be great. Because
so it just barely launched. I've seen a lot of gold plays come and go over the last 5 years. I usually don't touch them. Most of them haven't done well long term. Some do well short term. I do like Ian Bellina, one of the founders of Token Metrics. He is a fundamental analyst and he's bright. So I would have to hear what he's saying about this myself. What I like about Ian Bellina is he takes similar approaches to what I do, which is more a fundamental analysis, buy things when they're cheap and hold them till they're not cheap anymore. And that's when you sell. So he's made himself absolutely rich. He got started about a year and a half before I did. So the 2017 run, he made millions. I came in October 2017. So kind of late or very late in that run. So I'd have to hear what he's saying about this one. I did look at their website and it's like earn gold while you hold. Gold Retriever is a decentralized financial asset of the future. By combining the exponential growth opportunities of cryptocurrency and the stable reserve currency of gold, Gold Retriever represents decentralized financial freedom at its finest. Not usually my type of project, though I would be open to hearing what Ian Bellina says about it. I didn't like when I went to their website from CoinGecko too. It is like, this is not a secure site. I always, especially in crypto, get concerned when I go to do something like that. So I'm not going to connect up to the app or anything. So I always do go to the websites. I go to CoinMarketCap or CoinGecko, and then I click on the website right from there, and you'll see, not secure. There we go. That's the website. Price is interesting. I don't know how much you can see that, but like,
I think I'll have a look at it for next week if I may, because CoinMarketCap's not letting me do a search for some reason. I don't know if it's something to do with the browser or whatever, but I think it might take too long to solve that. But I'd be happy to look at it, but it's not on the main CoinTrader Pro, and it doesn't see, it's a wrapped ETH on TradingView, which, I mean, this looks very bullish. If this is, but I don't know whether this is correct or not.
You're only able to buy it on Uniswap right now, so that's where people are buying it. And I guess there's going to be an airdrop according to how many of these you're holding of the PaxG token, which might be what's driving this. And it's kind of one of those things that once the airdrop then, or the snapshot related to the airdrop then happens, sometimes the price then falls.
Yeah, so this looks bullish. This technical setup. I mean, it's a triangular constriction and it's breaking out. So I would say, as long as it holds, if this is a good measure of where the price is, as long as it holds above this blue line, which comes in around 0.0016 to 17. So basically the bottom of this consolidation, it's starting to accelerate. So something that's accelerating and going into the new high should continue without any delay. So I wouldn't want to see it sort of mess around here. If it's going to go, it should go very smoothly. And you can see that's what happened here. Obviously, there's not much trading volume, and I don't know whether it's going to be a 5-day wonder and then collapse. So this is again the problem with these problems and the potential of these particular coins.
Will you take it off log view so the viewers can see just how much this has increased? Because it's actually really significant how big the increase has already happened on this from its early prices from just a month ago. And so I'd say this is getting pretty high risk. So it's gone 100x or more from what it would have initially launched at. Maybe even much more than that.
Yeah, I'm just wondering whether this is actually still the right. I mean, this is saying Gold Retriever. I'm not sure. Is that actually the
Gold Retriever?
It is that. Okay. Yeah. So it's obviously moved a hell of a lot before it's got here, but at least the trend is up. So and it's still buoyant. And so there might be more. There might be more to go. So we can only sort of look at what's in front of us from a technical point of view, and it's breaking into a new high becomes an automatic buy signal. I'm not saying that it will always work, but that's a kind of automatic rule in technical analysis, because obviously it's confirming a trend, but that doesn't mean that you don't have any risk against that potential reward. You have to place in stops in case you're wrong, and that's why I always look for an area where I could be wrong and need to parachute out, rather than just kind of sitting there and hoping that it goes back up. So this is a very fast moving market, very fast moving potential trade. So I think overall I'd put it in the category of, it looks like there's some interesting moves going on in the whole sector, and I hope.
Would you put this as following your metrics? Would you put this as a buy, a wait, or a sell?
I'd have to call it a buy because of the way it's trading.
Yeah, what I would say fundamentally on this is I would dig in as deep as you can. I would find out if you're interested in looking at this, what token metrics says about it, because there might be more run here. It might be near the end of the run. From those that bought just like a month ago, it's already up 100 or 200x. That always makes me shaky. That always makes me worry. Like, I don't like to buy moves that I've already missed. So with that, for me, it's I'm not going to jump into the level of research that I would need to in the next day to see if I'm going to try to catch a further ride if I think there's going to be one. What would be detrimental is if if everyone's buying this because the snapshot and the PAX G rewards they're going to get, and if that snapshot is going to happen soon, then usually there's then a big fall off related to that snapshot. And I don't want to get caught off when it then comes down, retraces like huge amounts towards where it's already grown. And it might not do that, it might run some more, but if it's already gone up 200x from a month ago, then it just kind of hits my radar as a warning signal. But there might be more run to go. You would want to dive in deeper and see what you feel on that, and make your own decision there. Good suggestion.
I would have liked to have seen it only because of the technicals. I know you might say, obviously, well, of course you want to have seen it earlier because it's gone up, but this was the sign that something was happening.
You had that constriction pattern, which is absolutely what you would have bought.
Yeah, that's the sort of thing I look out for. This sharp move, this consolidation, and I like these triangular constrictions as well. So this is good. It's just that we broke
to the upside from that.
Yeah, exactly. So we would have caught it maybe a little earlier from this constriction, because you can see how it was going into a point and now it's broken out. The trouble is the later
30% run up from there.
Yeah, and so as you quite rightly saying, we are now chasing it a little bit more than we would have liked. So, and the problem with that is, from a technical point of view, I've seen things like this where you say, okay, I've missed it, and then it just blasts higher, and you think, well, okay, I should have bought it then, even though it was higher. So that's why I have to say it's a buy, because it hasn't negated the trend as yet, and that's again one of the rules. But obviously, I'm less comfortable with buying it here compared to where it was before. But the buy, sell, or wait is kind of, well, it's not binary, but there's only three options, and so I can say it's a buy, but with some caveats.
Cool. Let's check up on Freeway Token. It's doing an interesting move pattern. Remember, this is the one where they put a pause on withdrawals. So the story behind the pause on withdrawals is that they trade funds in for forex trading, and their algorithm had all of a sudden some huge losses. Now, there's supposed to be some cap on losses that they can make, so it's capped at 1% per day, and that wouldn't be a huge loss, but supposedly something went wrong in there and they lost much bigger numbers than that, and they put a pause on withdrawals, which absolutely savaged the price. And then since then, if we could zoom in really close on what's happening recently since the price got savaged, That's what I wanted to look at.
Yeah. So this for me is dangerous. I would be very, very cautious here because this sharp move down is obviously volatile, and I would need more support than this to confirm that it's safe to go back in. I mean, one could try and surf a rebound, but you'd have to be very, very nimble. And when I'm speaking on this show, I don't know whether we're going to talk about it next week or 2 weeks' time or a month's time. And I wouldn't step in on something like this. I'd much rather buy something that looks like it's going up, even if there's more risk in it, like the previous chart, than something like this where I'm trying to catch a reversal. So for me, I think it's a wait for sure at a minimum. It's not a buy for me at all. I'd have to be convinced by something else. Now, I would rather wait for it to go all the way back into here and then consider buying it. And you might say, well, that's crazy because you're just leaving all this on the downside. But I'm looking at the longer term direction. We're not sort of position trading it on a day-to-day basis. We're trying to look for strategic longer term plays. And when something is like this, this could be the bargain of a century. And maybe this is the time to buy, but I'd be quite happy to miss this one, given that this is a very sharp downward move. And more often than not, when this happens, you do get some people buying in, but I've seen it happen too many times where it extends to the downside again. And so without really being sure, I'd have to err on the side of caution and say, I'm going to have to wait.
Yeah. So Paul is away. For me, this is actually, so I own a lot of this token already. And much as I almost never sell at a loss, I did sell some at a loss. And that was just to lower the amount of risk I had in this. And it sucks. I can count the number of times that I've taken an 80% hit on something, like on one hand. And so my dollar cost average price was close to where that floor was. It probably even a little bit higher, at just under 1 cent, and it got savaged. And that's just part of being in the space. I knew that this was a long-term risk. Experiencing something like they did and the freezing withdrawals is a big hit, and it just makes people aware of how risky it is. Now, this still could go well. One of the reasons I held a lot of this is as money comes in the market, this is the type of platform that could do exceptionally well, and could see massive increases on their token to the tune of 100x, 200x from where it was at just under 1 cent. When something like this happens, it really makes you aware of how risky the whole platform could close down. And we just seen Celsius go through massive problems and Voyager go through massive problems. So on everyone's mind is the risk of your tokens being lost, or what you hold on the platform being lost. And so that's why the token price got savaged so much. And I hated selling and realizing those losses, but sometimes I was really heavy in this. So I needed to de-risk some of that. And a lot of it, I just have writing that I'll probably write it all the way to zero. If it goes to zero, I don't think it will, but who knows at this point, right? When they start freezing withdrawals, we'll see if they open it back up so that people that want to withdraw can. And then when they do that, if the platform survives, and if it does, then it can do quite well. But I think it brought to everyone's awareness the risk behind it. I think, is that all we have that we had on the list today to look at? Yeah. Well, great. Paul, thank you for joining us. We appreciate your insights.
Always a pleasure. Oh, sorry, I put the volume down. Yeah, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for your picks and all your comments. Really appreciate it. And thank you for inviting me on, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Paul. For those of you who are in the audience, you want us to look at some things next week, put them in the comment section. Tell us up to 2 which ones you want us to take a look at, especially if we haven't looked at it in a while. And I do prefer if you tell us what you like about it, I'll give you priority on reviewing because sometimes we get a lot of suggestions and can't fit them all in. But those, if you write out your fundamental analysis on why you want us to look at it and what you like about it, that really helps because there are over 18,000 altcoins. I can't keep my eyes on all of them. That gives me an idea what you like about it. Thanks so much. Remember, the crypto market, it's still slow. Good decisions, though, made during these pullbacks lead to life-changing ones when the market turns around, and they do turn around. This wrap is for all of you to reinforce the principles that I share that make all the difference in higher returns.
Came into the space chasing all of the gains, chasing the pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, shit, right before you could. Was told to buy when it was pouring like a rainmaker should. I buy when it's down, don't chase the boats that I miss. Cause I always made the time in mind. I take the one out cause I'm patient like that. And I'll wait for the right time. I sell when it's high, I buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't leave with my heart. The principles are simple, to leave in a mark. Buy when it's boring, just gotta be smart. I sell when it's hype, like all the channels they pump it. That's when I was selling, go parabolic and dump it. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. The time is never better, the time like the present. This next 5 years is a gift and it's feeling like heaven. I'm committed to learn, to study and to know that nothing comes easy but with knowledge the game show. Sticking out this road cause soon will come a bear market. Learning and growing and when it's slow will be the target. They say it's come out, Bitcoin is dead. The massive decreases can get to your head. Sticking around, the time is better. Strong like that, I'll let the others be fretters. 2 years time the ball will bring back the gains. That makes it worth the effort cause here comes the rain. So let's go rainmakers, let's make it all happen. They go with the hate, say the haters be crapping. I'm here for 5 years, let's do this together. The time is right, the time could be better. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Haters be hating, the time to slow down. Addressing what they say when I'm wearing my crown. They're chasing green candles like someone who was new. I got a vision that was bigger, helping me to push through. I'm still human and sometimes it is rough. And that's what makes me special, simply I stay tough. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck.